My name's Kunal.
Hi, my name is Roshan.
And welcome to the Geeks of the Valley podcast, where we connect with some of the brightest minds globally who are leading their respective industries today to discuss some of the hottest upcoming industry trends and how their work is affecting the global economy. Today, we have Michael Catt joining us from Nebula Ventures. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Excellent. And Michael, so we hear you're somewhat of a blockchain pro, right? So how did it all start for you? When it came to this.
It's funny you said the word pro because it's all relative, I guess. To somebody on the street, you could be called a pro, but then when you start meeting with industry experts, I guess like the people in their fields that have been here for since 2010, you feel like you're an amateur still, right? Mm-hmm. But how did it all begin with me? So roughly, I think it was about 2.5 years ago. I was returning home from spring break, and I studied like all the week before. I was studying for this, thermodynamics systems test, and that's like all I was studying for. And it went awful, and I realized I had zero passion for mechanical engineering, but I'd always had an interest in finance and financial market infrastructure. So I decided to pivot, dropped the majority of my classes, and decided to pivot to what is high frequency trading, mm-hmm. algorithmic trading, and the like. And I wanted to put my own skin in the game, have some money of my own to put to make money off of. But then I started looking at exchange rates for stock exchanges, and I was like, well, this isn't possible. And I was really fortunate enough to have a friend that pulled up the Coinbase app where you could buy and sell cryptocurrency, and my mind was blown just by the volatility of the market and the appreciation that was beginning with Ethereum rising from $8 to $350. All of a sudden there's multi-billion-dollar market caps out here, and I didn't know this stuff existed. So from there, I decided to start my own miniature fund. It was really small at the time, and this is back when the crypto market was roughly $65 billion. Right. Mm-hmm. And from there, in that time period, in 2017, in about a 6-month period, the cryptocurrency market appreciated from 65 billion to 800 billion. A lot of outrageous growth. Mm-hmm. Mostly caused by the ICO hype, initial coin offerings. And so from there, I decided, a lot of people jumped into cryptocurrency just because they wanted to make a quick buck. But if this technology really is going to revolutionize the world, which I believe it will, it's going to be the way you're going to really, reap value from it is if you dive into the weeds and actually figure out how it works and how it can bring economic utility to society. And so from there, I decided to, one of the things that, you realize with this technology is that there's a giant knowledge gap between university students and what they're studying, the industry as a whole. You have like people like in the cryptocurrency industry, they basically are speaking, they're all very intelligent individuals, but, if you can't have a fifth grader understand what you're talking about, you're going to have a hard time convincing a 60-year-old CEO at a bank that what you're doing is smart as well. You got to simplify the matters and educate people. And so at the same time, I was at the University of Kansas and then business school now, studying business analytics, and I realized that there's a giant opportunity to launch a research center surrounding cryptocurrencies and blockchain. And so from there, I started recruiting some guys in both the university, both the computer science department and the business school, and we decided to found the University of Kansas Blockchain Institute, basically a fintech center focused around blockchain and its use cases. Mostly, this is now it's really grown into a great thing, where we're doing a lot of research with a lot of postgraduates and computer science researchers, and we're really fortunate enough to by chance the CEO of Ripple Labs was also a Jayhawk alumni. At KU, our mascot's the Jayhawk. And so he's also from the town right next door to me. And so his name's Brad Garlinghouse, and we were really fortunate enough to get in touch with him. And Ripple Labs had a $50 million university research grant program, and we were able to land $2 million of that.
Wow! Congrats.
And it's really helped us. Wow, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, really appreciate that. Yeah, man. So that the money hit in like April, in January of this past year, and it's really I guess it's really accelerated the program and let us do a lot of cool things. We put on a digital finance conference with a lot of great startups and the industry leaders this past April, And then we have a cybersecurity conference surrounding blockchain and how it applies to how we can secure supply chain networks. And I think it's scheduled for October 18th of this year. So things are coming around pretty well in that
No,
regard.
I bet. And are you planning on being one of the founders of this fantastic blockchain institute at University of Kansas? Are you planning on going back to attend these conferences or meetings as an alum? What's your plan for down the line?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one is just to go back and see your old teammates, catch up with your, the old faculty that, a lot of the faculty were like pinnacle to basically accelerating a program. And, it's tough to navigate, a university without the support of the faculty. That's one thing for sure. So, I mean, I'm really happy, two guys that really were, fundamentally helpful with us were Perry Alexander. He runs the ICTC, which is the research center at KU, and then Dieter Schrader as well. And also Felix Mesty. I got to give these guys the credit because they've been really helpful to the organization, and I'm happy to come back and see them.
I bet. And I think before we Roshan takes the call and pivots into, talking about blockchain, the one thing that I found very interesting about your profile, and I think for listeners out there, is how your background in college changed many times. Do you kind of want to discuss that when you were thinking and going through what you wanted to do in your degree?
Right, man. So I guess, my background and how my college experience was, the education portion of it was really, it was hectic to say the least. I made a lot of pivots. So, at a young age, when I was in 4th grade, I started, we were playing the stock market game, and all my friends were getting Apple iPods, and the iPod video just come out, or like you could watch videos on your iPod. And I was like, this is all anybody's ever talking about. And so I was like, I bet Apple would be a good stock to, put my money on, or to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And then I won the stock market game that year. And then the same kind of thing happened in 2013 with Tesla. I was really interested in that company, and then their stocks really took off. So I was always really interested in how you could invest in technology and its impact that it would have on the world of finance, or like in investments. But from that regard, so I went in as a finance student at the University of Kansas, and then I realized, my brother was a civil engineer now. He had just graduated, and I was like, engineers, they're the smartest people in the room are always going to be the engineers, usually. So I was like, I'll pivot to, I was also really interested in space, naturally, from, SpaceX and Elon Musk. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go be an aerospace engineer, which, keep in mind, aerospace engineers, in the academic portion, it's about 20% retention rate. So only 1 in 5 people who start as an aerospace engineer finish. And it's funny how that turns out, because a year later I was a mechanical engineering major, and pivoting for more, wider array of classes, essentially, more industries to go into. And then, but really I just, you start studying power plant design, and, all of a sudden your equations are taking up, 2 whole pages, and you're having panic attacks. Like, am I going to finish this test in time? Right. And then you realize, I just don't like this. It's like you do what you like, right?
Exactly.
I think that's comes, students. I think it's important for students, really, like, if you don't like, a lot of portions of school aren't fun. Classes stink, but find something you're really interested in. Just really don't be afraid to go say like, oh wow, I think that's really cool. Because if you like what you're doing, it's not going to feel like work. When it doesn't feel like work, then that's where you can really excel. Like, people do what they're good at. Like basketball players don't practice every single day because they do because they want to be great. But I mean, if you make threes, every single shot you make goes in when you're practicing, it feels a lot better than, throwing a football into the, or playing golf and, hitting a shank every time. Right. So that's kind of how my pivot started. And at the same time, when I was, launching the organization at KU, I decided to also get really interested in venture capital. Because I figured a lot of the things I was interested in were also starting to take off in the venture capital world. So I actually, I guess this is where, I kind of I transitioned and talk about the Hack Fund. I was at Berkeley, was putting on this crypto economics conference in downtown San Francisco at the Hilton, and I met these guys at the Hack Fund there. The Hack Fund is a VC based in San Jose, and what they were doing was they were providing a security token offering, or essentially what they were doing was they were taking they're taking stock certificates and they're issuing them on Ethereum. And what that means is that they were basically making blockchain compatible stock certificates. And they're trying to raise money that way. And they're having this issue, right? When it comes to raising money, because ICOs, or initial coin offerings, were starting to plummet. Nobody was throwing money into them anymore. And so they had this issue where like, all right, well, we're trying to raise money for legit operations. Like, a lot of ICOs are essentially they're vaporware. They're honestly scams. 98% of ICOs are scams. But what we're doing, we want to invest in startups. We want to basically remove the barrier. The issue that in venture capital, the reason nobody can jump in is that one, in America, there's a lot of laws. You'd have to have quite a bit of money if being an accredited investor. So that's one reason why it's tough to invest in venture capital.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And two is that it's all based on networks. Mm-hmm. So how do we democratize this experience, and how do people get exposure to startups in Silicon Valley and globally in general? Mm-hmm. And so they're like, well, shit. I mean, we'll just pardon my language. We'll invest the money. It's a closed-end fund, mm-hmm. meaning so like all the money that is invested, we invest in these startups, and the fund grows through exits. So when a startup gets bought out by Facebook, that money, the profits are then reinvested back in the fund, and that's how it grows. So the problem they're having is that they have this great idea, but the way they're raising money is not working. And so how are they going to do this? Well, it turns out at the Hack Fund, they found out that there's a buddy from JP mm-hmm. Morgan that stopped by, and he was like, hey, your offering is very similar to a closed-end IPO. And so Draper Esprit is another similar fund. They're based in the UK. And then this is why I kind of opened up the door. And I was like, at the same time, they didn't want to abandon the blockchains and stock certificates. And I was like, all right, guys, well, maybe we should think back to how we're going to market these because we were first marketing. The problem that the Hack Fund had was they were marketing to basically very risky investor types, people that are looking for a quick return on their buck. They want to buy a token and they want to sell it on the exchange right when it is listed. But instead, they should be targeting institutions, mm-hmm. Private family right. offices, basically high net worth individuals. So I was like, the problem with these groups is that one, they're traditionally much older. They're much more. They're much used to like traditional finance methods. So I was like, well, we're gonna have to pivot how we talk about security tokens or these digital stock certificates. And let's be quick about it. Let's be cute about it. So let's look back at what actually a security token is. It merely is just a Ethereum token. That is, it's called a smart contract. So we have these Ethereum tokens called smart contracts, and the simplest contract in finance is a stock, and as a stock certificate, and that basically says, hey, you are legally entitled to this much of a company, right? So I was like, let's take that idea and let's merge the two together. So why not we just call them smart stocks or smart shares? Mm-hmm. And so that I was like, when I was sitting in the office for the first time, and I was sitting across from Jonathan Nelson, the fund manager at Hack, and he's like, damn, that's a good idea. And now when I go out, Jonathan's always gotten invited to like that,
these top tier events,
speaking
right?
events. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got these top tier events, and he starts saying the word smart stock and smart share, and it brings a smile to my face because that's like, where that idea, really was birthed. So that was a cool
happy experience. To hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on a tangent right now, but I guess but yeah, I guess, how that transitioned to it. So I worked at Hack for about 6 months, and it was a great time. Still talk to them a lot. They're having a lot of success. They ended up transitioning to an IPO, initial public mm-hmm. offering, on the London Stock Exchange for Q1 of next year. So that's really exciting to hear. Okay. And, while I was doing all this, that was like through like the fall and spring. And then this summer I met a guy named James Cousinis, a really nice Australian who had just moved to America, an entrepreneur, launching a new fund called Nebula Ventures. Mm-hmm. And they invest in seed stage to Series D in fintech and property technologies. And they're based out of Sydney and New York. And so what I've been doing for them right now is I'm sourcing investment opportunities, mostly in fintech, though we do get some property tech coming through as well. James has been a great mentor, and I've learned a lot about basically, it's really opened a lot of doors, from navigating hedge funds, mm-hmm. Meeting a lot of cool people, a lot of hedge funds in the cryptocurrency space, so the DeFi space, decentralized finance for people that don't know.
Right.
And even some crazy stories with some guys coming to you saying, we got 100,000, we have 10,000 Bitcoin for sale, help us sell it. Some crazy stories like that. It's
OTC trades,
nothing actually
right?
came of it, but it's OTC trades. Yes, very. When you're trying to sell, $500 million worth of Bitcoin, you can't do it on the exchange,
I have
right?
to add that's a whole different ball game, right? When dealing with those
whole different, crazy ball game.
Exactly.
Whole different ball game.
I wanted to ask, when it came to, you're currently with Nebula and before you were with Hack Fund, what was the difference in the deal size and the investment size that you guys would make in pre-seed, seed, Series A startups? About the same?
Oh, so with Hack Fund, it was interesting because they were with Hack. We were actually, so Hack was serving as the venture arm for Vodafone, the giant telecom in Europe. And so what Vodafone was looking for was, basically SaaS plays that they could basically acquire and throw down their distribution channels. So like they automatically are like, they have a new great software that can be utilized by their giant company, their conglomerate, and it really is even scale the products really easily. So that was really, that would depend, like, some sizes for some seed to Series A and some bigger. And then basically Hack's strategies. They're building up a pilot portfolio basically to go to investors saying like, here's like basically what we invest in, and this is how we want to scale it and really attack these these verticals across these different industries. Like these are the type of investments we make. And then on a Nebula, it really it's an early stage fund, right? So right now we're looking for basically seed stage companies. The golden goose is a seed stage company that is producing $1 million annual recurring revenue every year. And so those are hard to come by, obviously. So we've been really picky with what we found, what we're we're investing in. Basically, I'd say right now, if you find a deal, it's got 5% chance of going through, just because that's how that's how tight we're being with our money. I want to make strong investments. I guess that answers your question. But really, it kind of depends on what the play is. Right now we view. Right now, exchanges are very, like in this exchange space, it's tough to make, if somebody's trying to launch a brand new exchange, you got to wonder why. How are you going to compete with Coinbase? What's your target market? Are you going to go for retail, or are you going to go for institutions? Because like right now, Seed CX is really taking over the institutional market. You have groups like, groups like BATS are changing the game and settlement. So right now, the best exchanges are ones that have best exchanges right now that are growing are ones that have very strong settlement and custodial solutions built in. Because right now, if you're trying to, it used to be in the past, you want to buy 100 million or 500 million Bitcoin. Where are you going to, worth of Bitcoin? Where are you going to store that? How are you going to manage that? And that's the problem. There's a lot of risk at play. So you got to mitigate that risk to bring in these type of investors.
So you're kind of looking at, so then I'm guessing in this format, deal size really really fluctuates basically, right? Because usually, right, if you look at a regular pre-seed or just early stage fund in general, right, they'd usually do $500,000 to $1 million investments, right? Seed, Series A.
Right, and it's funny how that's exactly right. Like a seed is around, like a couple of seeds that we're looking at around one's 600,000, another one's like about round one. So it really depends. And then at the same time, man, the terminology and definitions of a seed and a Series A,
they fluctuate.
Series B, they fluctuate. Yeah. So it's kind of just say, it's more of like, how many times are you taking money?
And depends on the risk in the market as well,
venture,
right? Especially
exactly.
And you guys since you're a crypto focused fund, that's I'm guessing the investment amount might be lower in certain areas.
Yeah, and I wanted to, I guess we could clarify too. We do look at crypto products, and we're advising crypto products as well. But we're not just necessarily crypto focused. We also look at fintech as a whole, because there are some plays that we've seen where it's like, all right, well, this doesn't involve crypto at all, but they'll still, like, they've found a way to tokenize like digital identities and like in distributed manner. So it's all it's blockchain, but it's not it's like it's blockchain, but it's not crypto. But the Venn diagrams swivel a lot, but overall it's all majority of fintech, niche fintech, and property tech.
Perfect.
Hey, Michael, I think I just wanted to segue into a different topic. I kind of wanted to get your viewpoints on the students or the entrepreneurs that are getting into the blockchain or crypto space right now. Where do you think they should spend a majority of their time to make sure they're doing useful work, and kind of where do you think the trends are pointing toward right now?
Right. Thank you, Roshan. Right now, towards when starting out as a student, when you're thinking about launching your own organization, or thinking about launching your own startup, I think first let's look at I guess I'll focus on what I did at University of Kansas was with the Blockchain Institute. Our idea was, how can we get our foot in the door into an industry That's right now pretty opaque. It's still really nascent, and we're stuck in the middle of America and Kansas, so we're not on the coast where all the developers and action is. So the way we combat this one is you can't really run an organization without some funding. So we peaked around funding is really important, just to be able to get put on events for students, and basically it's the fuel for your engine, right? So the best way to go about that is one, when you first start your organization, professionalism is very important. Crypto is a nascent space. There are unicorn little logos and crazy conferences crypto definitely brags about being different than investment banking or other industries. But overall, professionalism and branding is really important. And it's it sucks that people won't take you seriously at first because you're a student. But if you can brand yourself as very professionally, then off the bat, you're going to be taken seriously, and you're going to get your foot in the door. At least people are going to pick up to your calls or respond to your emails. So from that, with that regard, once you look the part, now you got to act the part. So next I would say, what right now is trending in crypto, and student orgs is, well, right now money is still flowing, greatly into university programs. Quite a few products they need developers, and they need educated individuals that can use their protocol and build services on top of them. So right now, I would, if I was, I graduated this last year, and I'm no longer in charge of my group, but if I was just starting off again, I wouldn't really change much of a thing. I would reach out to as many different protocols, whether it be Algorand or a lot of the different student groups. I know Roshan, you're an ambassador for MassBelt, so those are great. Reach out to the groups that are already informed, that are to basically help build a bridge for students and developers into crypto. And from there on, I mean, right now it's tough to say that dApp's really taken off. You have CryptoKitties and what's this new? I'm trying to think of what it's called. There's a new game coming out it's crypto based, but overall, I think it's important to think of what's not being done yet and try to attack that. So there's games they can do with students. That's the way to get kids interaction with these companies. Overall, just gotta think different and think out of the box. One of the ways that I got my blockchain institute into the door of these universities was by putting on a digital finance conference. And so at this digital finance conference, we had probably 7 different companies present, from startups to large companies like Ripple. And from there on, I've developed great relationships with some of the guys at these startups, and they're now my friends. So that's kind of I guess the number one, if you're a student group, the number one thing if you're a leader or trying to get your foot in the door is make friends in the space. And that starts with hey man, you want to come speak at my conference? Absolutely. Yeah. That sounds awesome. Now it's I got buddies they'll just they message me on Snapchat. It's it went from being they went from being emailing very formal emails to now it's oh hey, we met up for coffee, now we're we're snapping each other from baseball games and we're buddies. And so I guess when you get friends in the space, this probably goes for any industry, but when you have a friend and not just an acquaintance, acquaintance will say oh yeah, it's not about who you know, it's about who you know and if they like you. Because if they like you, then they're going to help you just because they want to help you. Especially at the end of the day, it's for the kids. Everybody really there's always an entrepreneurial aspect to jumping into this space in crypto. So and people are always trying to help each other out, and you can see that in venture capital as well. Oh hey, you should meet this guy. You should meet this guy. Being a serial networker can it's a great way to get as an associate's role at a firm. So those are kind of the steps I'd say to get some of the tips I'd give to any student group trying to launch their own group operation. And trends in general in the space are I think I've mentioned them earlier with games and where we're going with the economics, but you really just as long as you're well vested, you're well knowledgeable on the basics of the economic principles that back Bitcoin and crypto networks in general. You're gonna sound like one of the smartest people in the room, even though you feel like the dumbest. That's kind of the idea, right? Is to learn as much as possible, and then get yourself in the right doors where you are the dumbest person in the room, because no one likes being nobody wants to be the smartest person.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing all those great tips, and I definitely agree with you that this is a space that's kind of more open than kind of the traditional finance space or maybe the traditional business space, because that's even how we met. And yeah, it's been really great talking to you. I just want to give a chance for you to let all our listeners know where they can reach out to you if they have an interesting project, or maybe they want to follow up on some of the great things that you mentioned and the interesting projects you're working on. So where can they reach you at, Nicole?
Right. A great way to reach me would be through my email. I check it all the time. It is M as in Michael, mcatt, mcatt nebulaventures.io. So it's mcatt at nebulaventures.io. And, thanks again, Rashawn and Kunal, for having me on. This is great. This is a great idea for a podcast, and I'm sure it's going to be taken off. Only a matter of time. I'm going to be able to brag to my friends like, yeah, dude, Valley Bros. That's what's going on.
Yeah, thank you. It's been so great having you on, and thanks for providing a place where our listeners can reach out to you. So hopefully they reach out to you, and yeah, we'll look forward to catching up with you, and we'll let you know when it's up.